Hi everyone. Making life easier, isn't that what everyone is always looking to do? I know with type 1 diabetes, I'm always looking for ways of making life easier and saving time because it takes up so much of your time. And food takes a huge chunk of time out of your everyday life because you have to count and calculate at every meal, and you have to dose your insulin, and you have to check your blood glucose levels. So here are my 5 tips and my 5 tools that I use to easy carb count, to make life easier for myself, to enjoy the rest of my life. So tip number 1 is consistency. If you can carb count consistently most of the time, and I know it's not easy to carb count all the time, you have to guesstimate sometimes, but if you can carb count consistently most of the time, you're bound to see an improvement in your glucose levels. And tip number 2, saving time. So trying to find ways to save time, which will equal an easier life, which will equal better consistency, and which will equal better control. And tip number 3 is a very important one, I feel, for diabetes control and management, and that is to know how the food affects your body and how the insulin affects your body. And affects your blood glucose levels, because everybody is different. And although you have a healthcare team that advise you on your glucose numbers that you bring to them and based on what you tell them, they don't know what everyday life is like for you. So you have to learn yourself how the food affects your body, how the insulin affects your body, how both work together, and how it affects your blood glucose levels. That will really help your diabetes control. Tip number 4, we're creatures of habit. So if you look at your diet, you will probably see that you eat the same meals on a regular basis, or you tend to like particular meals. So that in itself makes it easier for you to easy carb count. And that's a really good thing. So if you look at your diet and pick out, say, the 2 breakfasts that you like, the 2 lunches that you like, and the 2 dinners that you like, and start there. And tip number 5 is it's going to take time to learn how to consistently carb count, and you will have to put work in the beginning, but it will make your life easier in the end. So it's well worth putting the time and the effort in. Take little steps and do it in phases. So as I said, start with your breakfast, and start with the breakfast you eat most, and carb count and learn what way that affects your body, and then move on to your lunch, and then move on to your tea. And that's the way it is. That's how easy it is. My 5 tools. Tool number 1 is scales, and I keep this on the worktop all the time. It's really compact. You can get loads of different ones. I love this one because it's so compact, and I keep it on the worktop, and I say to people, try to keep it on the worktop if you can, because you're more inclined to use it. Tip number 2 is a calculator, and this stays on my worktop all the time as well, because you'll tend to use it more if it's just at hand. If you have it tidied away in a press or something, you're just going to say, oh, I couldn't be bothered pulling it out, just guess. So if you have both of those on your worktop, you will be more inclined to carb count. Tool number 3 is cups, measuring cups, or Tupperware. Everybody has these in their kitchen, or ramekins are really handy, and they are really good. So if you measure out, for instance, or for example, this ramekin I use for my porridge, so I've measured out my 40 grams of porridge and I know it fits in there. So instead of every morning pulling out my weighing scales and all the rest, I just weigh it into that and make it up, and it saves time. So you can use all these things to measure out the likes of rice, pasta, things like that. Find something in your kitchen that it fits into, and that you know what carbs are in it, and that will really make life easier for you. Tool number 4 is Carbs and Cal book. This is a really good book. I keep it up on my microwave in the kitchen, and they also have an app for when you're out and about. It's really handy if you're out having coffee and things like that. But it's a really good book. It gives you everything from drinks to desserts to takeaways to dinner to bread, anything, and you can see it's on a plate, and it tells you what the carbs are in it, and it gives you the weight so that you can weigh it out. This is really good and really handy. You can also do it by eye. I find my eye judgment is not great, but some people might have good eye judgment, and they give you the size of the plate so that you know what you're working with. So that's really, really handy to use as well. And my final tip, number 5, is just a refill. I use this a lot. I have 5 dividers in it. I have my breakfast, lunch, dinner and snacks. And what I do with this is for example, my breakfast. So the breakfast that I would eat on a regular basis, and I like to change my breakfast around. But what I did is I recorded in my breakfast and I calculated the carbs, and I know how many carbs. And then I had this done from before I went on the insulin pump. So I had my insulin ratio written in here and how much units I had to give for it. So I have 1:10, 1:8, 1:12. Now this will depend on your own insulin needs. So you need to check this yourself or check it with your healthcare team. And then I have my 4, 5 or 3 units or whatever it is. So I do this for each breakfast, and I've done it for meals, you know, lunches that I'd eat, like beans on toast, scrambled egg on toast, different things like that. And if you record it in, you just can pull it out and you don't have to take out your calculator or your scales or whatever, and you have it there and you just say, okay, I need to give 4 units because this is the amount of carbs I'm going to eat. And it's really, really easy, and you will eventually remember these ones. The foods that you eat on a regular basis, you will remember after a while. But it's really handy to have if you're tired or you're frazzled or you're going through diabetes burnout or whatever and you just couldn't be bothered. This is really handy to have. So they are my 5 tools and my 5 tips for easy carb counting, and I think if you can put the work in the beginning, it really, really makes life easier later on. If anybody has any questions, please comment below and I will try and get back to you. And thank you for listening. I'll talk to you soon.